Oh, no problem. My pleasure. If I can answer them before the meeting, that's even better. If I can answer them before the meeting, that's a lot better. Yes, thank you. I think those people just stay there. It's only these. It's not the same people. I was worried. Is James going to be here tonight? I don't know. Mrs. Wagner, your microphone, please. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. We're going to begin the Denville Board of Education meeting. This meeting of the Denville Township Board of Education is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice of this meeting was provided to the Daily Record and/or the Star Ledger of Morris County, has been delivered to the Township Clerk, and has been posted on the bulletin board of the Board of Education office and at each of the school buildings in the district. Roll call, please.
Mr. Capello?
Here.
Mr. Cass?
Here.
Mr. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Luer?
Here.
Mr.
Here.
Kim? Mrs. Gould? Mrs. Wagner?
Here. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Okay, we are going to go right into our special presentation this evening. Dr. Forte, you want to take it away?
Yes, I will. Can we have Councilman Galinsky come on up?
Okay, thank you.
So we have Councilman Galinsky here to give and Councilman Gable too, to give an award to one of our staff members. It was something that there was an event taking place, but there was a conflict with our back to school night. So we wanted to do the best we could and have something that was, a respectful presentation to our staff members. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Forte, Dr. Forte. Is this okay? All right. So thank you for the opportunity to come tonight and present this Good Scout Award. And, this recipient obviously put their priorities in the right place by attending back to school night instead of our festivities, although they were a lot of fun. We had representatives. We have about 11,000 members in the Patriots Path Council of Boy Scouts, and we heard stories from several of them talking about how meaningful scouting is to them. And this Good Scout Award program helps us get the word out and keep scouting alive in Morris County and the neighboring counties. And the award is presented to those people who in their daily lives exemplify the ideals of the Boy Scouts of America as expressed in the Scout Oath and Scout Law. And one of the things that happened that night is we had a presentation from Councilman Gable, who is also on the board of directors for the executive board for Patriots Path Council. And one of his announcements that was really meaningful to me was that the Boy Scouts has expanded their program and changed their mission that reads, to prepare young people to make ethical and moral choices over their lifetimes. And I'm particularly excited about that because now young people includes girls, and as of a few months ago, I became a grandfather to a granddaughter. So I am excited that she will be able to enjoy the program. So we honor these really special people, and we honored 4 other folks of the Denville community, and we are blessed in this town to have so many good, hardworking volunteers and people. And the person that we're here to honor tonight is Miss Lydia Stiles of Valley View, and the more I got to, my kids are older, so they didn't benefit from having Miss Stiles, all right? So, but her reputation is out there, and everyone you meet tells you how wonderful she is and how inspiring she is. And I'm like, I know 7th grade, 8th grade, that's hard to teach, but how could someone be that good? And then I learned more about her biography and her background, and she's had this tremendous, I would say, love of the environment and working for the environmental commissions and with endangered and non-game species programs. Like, she was a hands-on person, and she has found a way to transfer that knowledge and that love into her students, right? And that's the word unanimously from everybody. So I would like to give her that award, but in 1 minute, I guess the biggest thing that I think she's famous for, this is from someone who never met her, is how she is inspiring students and really instilling them the belief that sustainability is a way of living, not just a lesson in the classroom, and she does it every day. So I'd like to invite Ms. Stiles up for her award and to thank her.
Little story about Miss Stiles real quick. So Mrs. Stiles is amazing, like you said. When she came here, we were, what's the word, notorious for gardens that were nice at one point, but no one kept up with it. And we had probably 6 or 7 of these like remnants of good, nice gardens. What happens is it's all in good intentions. People start it, and then the person moves on, and the thing looks awful. And it happens quick, too. You don't take care of a garden, 6 months later, it looks like nobody ever took care of it. So we had a nice conversation. I said, look, all about the garden, but you got to be on top of it. And let me tell you something. Somebody here is on top of it. If you drive by Valley View, come up the driveway into the school, and you see the sunflowers. They're actually blooming right now. It looks amazing. And this is really Mrs. Stiles' baby over there. She doesn't just do it herself. She gets kids to do it. I remember driving by, and I didn't help either, which I should have, but I didn't that day. I drove by, it was about 98 degrees out, and she has five kids shoveling mulch they had probably 5 yards more mulch than they needed, so they just started mulching everything. And they had a mountain of mulch, like it was taller than me, and it was 98 degrees. It might have been 98 or 96. It was hot, and I was like, see ya. But it looks great. We thank you. I thank you every day for that. I mean, I just took a nice picture of it and sent it to you. So Mrs. Stiles is really an amazing leader when it comes to environment. She was awarded the Environmental Teacher of the Year award last year. That was for the whole region. So she's been really spearheading this movement since the beginning with the plastic bag collection. And, I can't even throw out a plastic bag anymore. Like, I want to, but I don't. I cannot throw out a plastic bag because of Mrs. Stiles. And she said, oh, it's not just bags. It's anything else. Like, like when you buy a case of water, it's the thing that wraps that. If you buy anything, there's plastic, they can recycle. So now I can't throw anything out. So we have a lot of that stuff in my house now. Thank you. Well, thank you. We think the world of Mrs. Stiles. She's been an amazing addition to our staff, and all the awards she gets, I'll take a little bit of the credit for it because, we hired her. But thank you again, and thank you guys for coming and making the announcement. And we won't feel like bad if you leave at all.
Please feel free.
Yeah. We're not saying you have to leave, but if you would like to stay for the festivities, please do. But if not, we won't feel bad. I know Mr. Corman's probably going to stay. He wants to sit up here and watch the rest.
It's always nice to start the meeting in such a pleasant way. Okay, on with the rest of our agenda. Superintendent's comments. Dr. Forte.
Okay, so I just wanted to go over real quick that I did review my merit goals with both committees as well as the vice president and president in August and September. They're on the agenda for October 25th. They're shared in reports. If you have any questions, please contact me. I'd be happy to go over it with anybody. And I just wanted to give everybody a heads up that it will be on for the 25th of October. Process for questions. So we're all learning this process, right? Hybrid, not in, virtual. I think we've done a good job of engaging the public with now using technology to get people that are at home that never would maybe go on. So just to give you a little heads up on this, any question you wanna give the board, you may. I mean, obviously, we're not saying that. That's fine. I think the intent of the email address is really related to general questions about policy procedures, things like that the board members or the three administrators up here would answer. If it's a specific question about your child's academic program or anything to do specifically about your child in their class, the best place to start is the teacher, and then the principal, and then you come to us and you can go to the board. But again, if you want to just put it in there, that's fine. I'm just letting you know what the purpose of the email address is for. I think week 1 was terrific last week. I thanked the community in an email, and I can't say enough about how great everybody was. And I don't just mean staff and students, I mean the parents. Everybody chipped in, did what they had to do, realized that, yep, it's not great wearing a mask. People don't want to do it, but we're doing it, and we're in school, and there's nothing I can do about it. It's a law, and I am definitely not going to do 6 months in jail for it. I'll be honest with you. That's what it said in the Executive Order 251. But I really want to thank the community and the board, everybody. I mean, everybody on board has been supportive and has gotten the children in. The children look great when they're in. They're happy. I'm sure they're not happy with wearing masks, but they're in school and they're there all day, and we're getting them outside as much as possible, giving them as much time as possible to get their masks off. I know it's difficult. Even talking with a mask is difficult. So we are working on our protocols to comply with Executive Order 253, the vaccination mandate. I'm just letting the board know and the public that we will be providing information to the staff. I'm hoping for the end of this week, by Friday, and then we will, it'll explain what the process will be, because Executive Order 253 requires that all employees, that's everybody, that's bus drivers, that's aides, lunch aides, administrators, business administrator, anybody that has to do with the school, must be vaccinated or would have to get at least weekly testing, COVID testing. So obviously this is a pretty big undertaking. We have to collect everybody's vaccine information. Again, this is Executive Order 253, not Steve Forte's Order 253. Executive Order 253 that's requiring this. And what we will be doing is collecting staff members, that's all staff members' vaccination cards. We have a plan for that. And then after that, we will provide information on how somebody will go about the testing process. The state is providing funding for this. So as of right now, it looks like it will be free to the district. It did say, though, that there's a limit on the amount of money, but it's a pretty high number. It's like $260 million or something like that, but that's for the entire state. I think it should go a pretty long way. So we'll have that information out, and I'll share it with the board so you're aware of what we're doing. Our projects, the Lakeview roof is mostly complete. There's just some flashing, the metal work still has to be done. The Riverview HVAC electric is mostly completed. There will be a one-day shutdown. Damaris, do we know if it's going to be Thursday or no?
That will be Thursday the 16th.
Okay,
yes.
so the school will be shut down. It's Thursday's no school day. It'll be the electric will be shut off because they have to hook up the electric, the new service. There still won't be puncturing the roof yet. The reason why they're not going to do that is because obviously the roof's under warranty, and they want to wait to actually have the unit on site. And I'm not sure if you're seeing about supply chain things that almost everything seems to be slow, but this is an intricate kind of piece that has computers and things like in it, so it's a little delayed, but they are expecting it by mid-October, I believe.
October 22nd, yes.
Okay, so late October, so let's plan on what, April? Well, maybe by the end of October or November, hopefully. But the other system's still in place. It was repaired, and it will continue to function as the heat only. I'm pretty sure we'll have it for next air conditioning season. I'll go out on a limb on that one. So we're pretty excited about that. So we did have a little bit of damage from Ida, the storm. We did move all of our buses under Damaris's direction from the bus garage, which is on River Road and one of the worst parts of the town in terms of flooding, all the way over town to Lakeview. And the reason why we did Lakeview is because Lakeview has a larger lot. The school would be open for staff and there would be no parking if we took over the Valley View lot with all the buses. So we would have preferred to use Valley View because Valley View's higher up than the bus garage, but we had to move them over to Lakeview, and the bus drivers all chipped in. There was nobody that, everybody said that they'd be happy to do it, and I watched them do it. It was really nice how they chipped in. There was minor flooding in the back of Riverview. You probably saw that Gardner Field was flooded, and when Gardner Field floods, that garage behind Riverview, if you come up behind Riverview by the basketball courts, you'll see a garage door. There was about 6 to 8 inches of water, but because this floods, every 5 years or so, we don't keep anything on the ground level. There's about a 4-foot high platform in there that keeps everything off the water level. But when we were doing it, we were thinking maybe there might be something we could do to help that. Maybe it might be able to do it with a waterproofing guy we have and see if he has any ideas. Might not, but maybe we can. Maybe we can. We probably couldn't do like Irene kind of damage, but maybe for this thing with 6 inches, we might be able to remediate that. So district-wide, our COVID cases right now, we have, this is all on our website, by the way. It's a live document, so whenever I update it, it's live to the public. It's on our website. If you click on plans 21-22 and then go to COVID data, you'll see. So we have currently we have 8 positive cases district-wide, and we have a total of 18 people quarantined district-wide. And our COVID activity report for the region is still yellow. There is one indicator that's orange, but you need to have 2 out of the 3 indicators to make it orange. The numbers are starting a little bit to go down, so maybe we won't go into the orange. I'm being hopeful. The back-to-school nights, last week was Valley View. And then we have Lakeview on the 14th. That's tomorrow. And we have Riverview next week on the 22nd. And that's it for my comments.
Thank you, Dr. Forte. Assistant Superintendent's comments, Dr. Cullis.
Thank you. Continuing on with our quarantine protocol, so as Dr. Forte said, we have 18 students in quarantine, whether that's if they have positive results or they've been exposed. So our quarantine protocols include live streaming the classroom for the core classes, and then also being assigned a home instructor up to 1 hour a day to do virtual work to go over the lessons. And of course, all of the lessons are posted on Google Classroom each day. Now, just to keep in mind, if we find out, like we did find out last night, on Sunday night, some students that were going to have to quarantine, so streaming was not available this morning. It will be available tomorrow, just because our staff, we preserve their wellness, and we don't require them to come in in the evenings or over the weekend if we find out. So in that case, it may be 24 hours before the live streaming is set up. However, so far we have been able to set up all of the home instructors the same day and be able to start that instruction the same night. So even the students that came in and were quarantined today, their home instructors were assigned today, and they already contacted the parents. So far we've been able to keep up with that. The Start Strong assessments are taking place October 4th through 8th. That's the state readiness testing. So that will occur in a few weeks. And then finally, September 15th, so Wednesday through October 15th starts our Hispanic Heritage Month, celebrating the histories, cultures, and contributions of American citizens whose ancestors come from Spain, Mexico, Caribbean, Central, and South America. So we do have some things planned. I know our Spanish and world language teachers are planning some activities, as well as some just general things in the classroom. This concludes Assistant Superintendent's Award.
I just have to hop in one real quick thing. This is something that Dr. Cullis and I spoke of before, and I forgot this until right now. So even though we may not be able to, and it's more difficult for the middle school, obviously, because there's more teachers. We may not be able to get the streaming up right away. It might take 24 hours. However, all students' work is posted on the staff member's Google Classroom, which would allow the quarantine children to begin their work immediately. It's just they wouldn't have the streaming component possibly for 24 hours.
Thank you, Dr. Cullors. Business administrators' comments. Mrs. Grasky?
I have two comments. The first one, the New Jersey School Board Association workshop will be virtual this coming year. If you have not notified me, please do so when you have a chance so we can register you. And the second item on my comments, we would like to thank Scott and his wife from Little Learner Academy. They graciously donated for the district to use one of their 24 school passenger buses so we can utilize them for transport students last week. And they allowing us to keep it to the end of this month at no cost to the district. They were really gracious and really accommodating to us. Thank you to them.
Damaris, would you mind addressing some of those questions that came up about the lunch that we spoke of?
The Denville Board of Education do have to comply with the New Jersey National School Lunch for one of the schools. However, we do not get reimbursements for those lunches because we are not participating in the reimbursements portion. We do not have a facility with kitchen to be able to prepare lunches, and therefore we have to contract with other vendors to provide those lunches at the district cost. And that's the reason a lot of the high schools in other districts who do participate in the national school lunches get reimbursed. And this coming year, everyone, including free or not free students, will be receiving free lunches for the entire year, but only if those districts participate in the USDA national school lunches, which we do not.
This is something we spoke about for a while as a board and committees. For us to do it, for us to start this and have a cafeteria, we don't even have the room for a cafeteria. So we would have to actually build from scratch, like a building that would hold at least one kitchen. I'm not saying that it's impossible, right? I mean, we could do it. It would just be a pretty big process. We'd probably have to go out for a referendum. And if the board and the community feel like that strongly enough about that, we can investigate it more. But for right now, we have talked a lot about it, and we just don't have the facilities to do that. Look, we're a district without a single kitchen. I know you might think we have a kitchen because we have like a microwave and something, but we don't have any kitchens. So obviously it's an industrial kitchen. If you ever saw what a cafeteria looks like, it looks like a cafeteria, like a big industrial kitchen. I don't know what else to say it, but it's not like, a microwave and a sink with a little oven. So it would take a pretty big job. It would require to actually build some type of an addition on one of our buildings to do that. So I just wanted to put that out there, let you guys know. And if it's something that we want to talk about or investigate forward, it will come up in the long-range facilities plan when our architects go around the district. When they provide the report, we can bring it up at that time.
Thank you, Mrs. Gorowski. Thank you, Steve. And Damaris, correct me if I'm wrong. I just want to summarize what you said so that, because I know the administration as well as the board members have been fielding a number of questions, and to make it clear. So right now we have 3 buildings in the district. One of them qualifies and receives the free lunch program, but at the district's expense. We do not have kitchens, so we do not participate in the USDA program, and therefore we do not qualify for the free lunch program that many local districts have received this school year. Is that accurate?
You summarized it really well, yes.
Ms. Wagner, can I just ask a quick follow-up question? So, Damaris, I know we talked about this quite a bit about who we're going to partner with as far as programs and for the lunch at Lakeview. And I know that it was pretty limited because obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, but we couldn't just choose a local caterer or anything. They needed to qualify under the appropriate programs for nutrition and everything else. So through that program, I know that now all lunches, and that's a requirement. I think it's an important note that because we're now in that, we have to be in that program partially, kind of not in the full national school lunch program because we don't have a kitchen, but we're involved in the free lunch program, that we cannot have separate lunches through another vendor, correct?
That is correct. The district has to, even though we do not have a kitchen, we still need to follow for that specific school the guidelines of the National School Lunch Program with the 5 components of the nutritional guidelines that they dictate. And therefore, we needed to choose a vendor who is already doing that program and who can provide those nutritional guidelines according to the regulations. Even though, again, we are not getting reimbursed, we will be audited. They can come in at any point and review the lunches to make sure that, yes, we are providing the vegetables, the fruits, the protein, the guideline, the 5 components that they dictate.
And just a quick follow-up question. So any of the cost on those lunches, the district is not making any money on that, correct? It's a break even for the district, is that correct?
The district is actually spending more than, because we are funding 100% of those free lunches for all 3 schools, even though we only have 1 school that qualifies over the 5% threshold. We are supplying free lunches for all 3 schools, for only qualified students who do meet the qualifications under the National School Lunch application.
Got it. And then, so if a student does not qualify for that program and they purchase a lunch through our current program at Lakeview today, if they spent $5, that pretty much cost us $5, right? In other words, we're not making money on any, I know it's costing us money for the free and reduced lunch, but for the students that don't qualify for that, we do not make a profit on that, correct?
Not at all, no.
Thank you. Okay.
But it's also important to know, if the parents decide to buy a cookie, that might be a little different, a little costly, and we might be charging a little different. Not we, the food company might be charging differently, but that's not part of the school lunch program. That's totally separate.
Got it. Thank you. Ms. Wagner, can I ask Dr. Forte one quick follow-up from his comments? Dr. Forte, I know you mentioned current, and I'm looking at the district website right now with the current, total current COVID positive individuals district-wide. Can you just clarify how we kind of determine a positive? Because it's not that day. Is it like that 10-day period, in other words, from when they first get diagnosed, or how do we keep them as a positive individual?
Okay, so this is how I've been reporting it for a while, and I think I got down to the best one. I worked with a guy in town, and he felt like this was good. So the first chart is the one that's like new. So if on that day, on 9/13, there was 1 positive case at Valley View, that's the new one. The other ones are people that are currently positive, meaning they're still within the whatever day period until they're no longer considered positive or contagious.
So when they're allowed to come back to the district is when they come off as a current actively positive individual.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect,
Now,
that makes sense.
The total quarantine includes all the people that are positive because they're also quarantined. So all positives, all quarantined are in the total quarantine.
Got it. Okay, that's helpful. I did not actually realize that for the quarantine students. I figured that was for the current positive students because the numbers wouldn't match up. If you add up the total students, there's 10 that so far have been positive, but there's 8 that are currently. That means that 2 are now eligible if they're not already back in school because they're no longer kind of kept out, correct? Okay, thank you.
Dr. Forte, I just have a quick question, circling back to what your comments were about Executive Order 253. Just mostly for the sake of the public, what's the deadline on that? I believe it's...
Okay, so October 18th, people either have to show proof of being fully vaccinated. That would mean, 2 weeks after the last shot? So 2 weeks after the last shot, or they would have to submit to weekly testing and then provide the results if they to continue working.
Right, thanks.
Sorry to take up too much time, but I just want to ask one quick follow-up question to Dr. Forte. For total individuals that are quarantined, and if you, I know it's kind of one-off often, but in general, what are the reasons that if a student could have potential close contact within the building? Can you give some examples? Because I think we set up the classroom so that we should avoid that as much as possible, correct?
Yes, so really, in the classrooms, we won't have it. On the bus, we will. So there's a couple kids today that went on the list because they were on the same bus seat as the child who was positive. So even if you're on the bus seat behind or in front, you're 3 feet, so you're okay. It's the ones that are sharing the bus seat. And the buses are full now. The parents aren't driving their kids to school like they were. It's full, and drop off and pick up. I was at the first Valley View one. Did anybody go to that? It was the most amount of cars backed up was 8. So there's not a lot of people dropping kids off. They're on the bus. So
It's not back to Morris Ave anymore?
yeah, I know. It was all the way back past La Cucina a few times. Now it's, yeah.
And then, Dr. Forte, what about in at lunchtime? In other words, are there students that are within 3 feet, right? Because that's the distance that the New Jersey Department of Health and Department of Ed has stated. Are there kids that if you sat next to the student and they became positive, would that be a potential other exposure, or does that depend?
It would depend, and it depends on how long they have their mask on and all that when they're eating, and how close they are to the child if they're positive. So if they're within the 3 to 6 foot range and they're masked, they won't be quarantined. If they're within the 3 to 6 foot range and they're unmasked, they could be. If they're 6 feet or beyond without the mask, then they won't be.
Okay. And then, are we still doing modified gym to avoid additional contact, or what does gym look like these days?
So what I told the gym teachers, what I told the principals really about this was to, they could use the equipment we have. They should, when they're indoors, they should try not to have super strenuous activity that's going to require heavy breathing and people on top of each other. But other than that, we're gonna try to have a normal year to start at least.
Thank you.
I know you have a question, Mr. Kim, but just to follow up on Mr. Anderson's questions, Dr. Forte, a lot of questions have been coming in about the Valley View lunch and the breaking up of students. So can you just address how that is affected by COVID and why it is the way that it is?
I would need a little more info. What exactly are the questions? Because I'm not aware of it.
Just that, they're spread out throughout the building, and then at Valley View, they're not in one grade. The entire grade isn't going outside. They're divided up. So we've been fielding a lot of questions about why that is.
Okay, so in order to continue with the social distancing during lunch, there's about, let's say about 90 kids each lunch period, because they take half the grade. So say there's 180 kids in the grade, you have 90 kids at lunch, 90 kids at recess. So there's 90 kids. The cafeteria only holds about 50. So the rest are now going to the what's it called? The music room and the STEM room for lunch. So there's 50 kids in there, and then the other 40 are split between the two rooms. And then on nice days, the teachers, they go to their recess room. On nice days, the teachers get them outside for lunch. Is that the answer to the question? I know they're not all together because we can't put them all in one room to keep the social distancing.
And that was really the answer that I was hoping that you would explain. Yeah, it's just for that social distancing purpose, that they can't just all go outside and play even on those nice days, because you have one positive case, and now there's no distancing, there's no masking, they're outside, and then you would have to quarantine a significant number of students.
Yeah, the outside is not as bad as the inside. The inside's a challenge, right? Because plus remember, you're moving 180 kids in a period of 40 minutes to eat, move, in and out. It's actually takes a little bit of time to do all that. So the 40 minutes is probably 30 minutes by everything's said and done. So it's been working pretty well. It's not perfect, but it's been working pretty well. And the staff has been great, helping out with it. And I mean, you just walk around and you're just amazed at how great everybody's been pitching in and making it work.
Can I ask a quick follow-up to that same question? So, Dr. Forte, did you say that the gym is being used for lunches?
So the gym was, they were trying to use the gym, but the problem was it just wasn't, they need the space for gym and they need the space for.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. And so then instead of having the gym, they're using the STEM room. So they have STEM room and I don't know if you've ever seen it, but we have a big space for the instrumental music room. It's got like tiered. So they have desks in there for kids to eat lunch too.
So, and that was actually, I'm glad you brought up the desk situation, because the question I received actually from multiple people was, are the kids going to be sitting on the floor eating lunch? So can you clarify the kids are sitting at a table of some sort? They're not sitting on the ground to have lunch?
So in the cafeteria, there's desk and chair for all 50 kids. In the, and then in the, what's the other room? The music room, the instrumental music room, there's a desk and chair for all the students. And then in the STEM room, there's a table and chairs, but there might be an occasional kid that chose to sit on the floor. He wouldn't be made to sit on the floor. If they chose to, I don't know if anybody would tell them not to.
There's a space for them.
Right.
I mean, there was a question when it came up as gym. They said, that's disgusting. The kids are going to be eating on the gym floor.
Yeah, no, they're
and
not.
I just wanted to clarify that kids are not being forced to eat on the floor anymore.
No one's forced to. Like today, when I went in there today, there were a couple kids on the floor that I think that's what they like to do. So we're not telling them they can't do it. But there's a space for it if they like it.
Thank you. Dr. Forte, it sounds like we've had a really good week and the reception has been really good. Do you know if there's been any cases of any kind of social emotional distress? And is everyone sort of on all hands on deck in terms of if any cases do come up, what the staff needs to do? And finally, not yesterday, but last year, some complaints were about the harassment and the bullying. So is the staff and everyone else, sort of up to speed on what to look out for and proper reporting on that?
Yes, so on the first day back to school, before the students come, we provided a workshop from St. Clair's for all of our staff to help identify children who may be in distress. We also provided a workshop for all our staff on what to look for if students are having any difficulty with the mask. And then the last thing you said, all staff are always, every year, on either the first or second day prior to the kids coming back to school, are retrained on the HIB process and procedures.
Great, thank you. Dr. Cullis, do you have the statistics on the kindergartners, how many enrolled and how many started the school year? And do we feel that the kindergartners are going to have a harder time adjusting with these processes that we have in place? And are you guys seeing anything with regards to the kindergarten class?
As of this moment, we don't see anything different from the normal kindergarten, the few tiers on the first day. But they don't really know differently, and so they're coming in and they're doing the activities. There was a question that came up about them using the toys, because we did bring in more of an element of play this year, and that maybe didn't happen in the first couple of days because there was a lot of routine building. But I think it's a pretty normal process. I think if you go into the classrooms now, it looks very different than last year. As far as kids being able to use the tables and selective times of when they use their barriers, so it's not quite the same. The kids are still walking down the halls the way they were last year. They spaced out, but they seem to follow. So I haven't seen anything that was different, like more tiers or something that was out of the order. I can tell you the numbers, just one moment.
Thank you.
And just so Dr. Cullis is looking that up, the administration and the public is aware, the board agrees that, the staff and students and community have been doing an excellent job. And these questions are just kind of working out the kinks and trying to answer some of the questions that we've been getting about the first few days of school, but certainly did not indicate that we think that a subpar job has been done, just trying to make some clarifications for the community.
So we currently have 169 kindergartners. We did have a few students that have elected to, at least for the time being, be homeschooled. I did provide some resources for them that they could access homeschooling curriculum. However, it really wasn't kindergarten. Like, at least I didn't get the calls. If they didn't withdraw. If they were not going to enroll, they just never enrolled. Like, I never heard from them. So I think it's probably in the range of about where we've been.
Thank you. Do any of the board members have any questions? No? Okay, so at this time, I'm sorry, Mr. Laura, I missed you.
Hello? There we go. Sorry, Dr. Cullis, do you have the breakdown? You said 169 total. Do you have the breakdown between Riverview and Lakeview?
Riverview is 70, so that would mean that we're at 96 at Lakeview.
You said the total was 169, so there's... Okay, thank you very much. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, so at this time, it is 8:11. We are going to open for public comment, agenda items only at this time. If you have anything relevant to the district, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. You will be limited to 3 minutes. Again, please remember that if you have anything of a personal nature, it should be discussed with your students, teachers, and staff and principal, and that the board is here to hear any questions or concerns related to policy that you might have.
Okay, this is on, right? Yep, okay. Donna Marie Szynski, 64 Pier Place. Good evening, everybody. I would like to start by asking every adult in the room a question. Who here got natural chicken pox? Raise your hand. Who got a vaccine after getting natural chicken pox? Okay. We have definitely reached herd immunity. The president said 75% of Americans are vaccinated. No one seems to be recognizing natural immunity. Where's that science? We don't have the full ingredients list of this jab. Why? Please go on 1000covidstories.com. That's 1000covidstories.com. It's a website created by nurses that were vaccine injured. They're sharing stories of their own and of people that were also injured. I demand that you guys refrain all these staff members from speaking to these students about these vaccinations. They are not doctors. We consult our doctors. We're not talking about herd immunity at all, okay? At all. And that's a disgrace. A teacher did speak to my daughter and the class at Valley View today. I'm not going to name her name, okay? But that's something that you guys need to handle. Vaccine clinics, again, I know you guys said no. I really hope that stays that way. I have a list of attorneys for anyone who wishes to consult with one. My email address is dmski1973@gmail.com. I'll gladly send it to you. I am going to consult an attorney if some of these things don't stop. Segregating our children. How is it safe not to quarantine a vaccinated child? The vaccine does not protect against Delta or MU variants. My daughter received a medical accommodation for panic attacks in the mask. Kids are making nasty comments to her in her shield. She has a very protective shield. Steve Forte saw it. I thought Denville was stigma-free. Panic attacks, that's part of that stigma-free sign, right? Mr. Corman and the school nurse, they've been wonderful. I don't have anything bad to say about the staff other than the one that decided to take it upon themselves to speak to our kids about vaccines and not mention herd immunity or vaccine injury. I am asking for the Board of Education to put a no tolerance policy in place for this kind of discrimination, okay? Speech by a teacher, okay? I know that they were supposedly trained on how to coerce people into getting the vaccine. That's not cool. You don't know who already had.
Let me stop you for a second.
COVID.
No one was trained in how to coerce people
Well,
to get the
that's what
vaccine.
we were still, NJEA was posting that, okay?
I
So
just
I'm
wanna make
letting
sure you
know.
guys
Okay.
understand. Yeah,
We
we
did
did not
not
do that.
understand that. Okay, I'm not signing my daughter's IEP I'm signing my daughter's IEP without prejudice until it's noted that my daughter was known to have panic attacks in the mask. Leanne Foth, her IEP case manager, told her to suck it up during a panic attack. I don't know what happened. I'm not privy to that information. I went over my 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you for addressing your concerns with the board. I think Dr. Forte made it clear that there was no training in vaccine coercion. So just for the record, there was no training in vaccine coercion. And while members of the public and community can comment on anything they'd like during their 3-minute time, well, we asked it to be agenda items only, but they can speak about personal items. The board and the administration are not allowed to respond to your personal issues. So as we've said before, and we'll state again, please bring concerns that you have about your specific child's treatment, either in the classroom or during the school day, to the teacher, the building administrator, the central administration, or the board privately, so that we can take care of that. I think that the board already has instituted, and the administration sees fit, that there is a no tolerance policy in bullying, harassment, and intimidation. If you feel that that is not being done, please take the appropriate measures and make sure that the proper notifications are made so that they can be addressed. Are there any other public comments? Anybody from the community? Does anyone have any other public comments?
There's one emailed comment, if you want to go through that first.
Yes, please.
I just wanted to, rebut, okay,
Can-
because I do have to leave. My
Okay,
kids gotta
so
go to bed 'cause they
actually,
got school.
excuse me, what I'm going to say is that, first of all, the agenda noted, and I read when we opened public comment, that it would be for agenda items only. What you mentioned during your 3-minute comment section was not relevant to the agenda. There was not an agenda item there mentioned. So typically, you would have had to wait until the second public comment section.
The
I
handling of
allowed
the
you to do
children in
that.
schools, yes, it is. And
Okay.
Mr. Corman did a wonderful job. I'm not bashing him, and I'm not bashing the school nurse. Thank you. My name's Donna, you know it.
I'm going to ask that you do not disrupt the meeting. If you disrupt our meeting,
I was being very cordial.
I'm not going to argue with you about disrupting the meeting. You're being disruptive, and if it continues, you will be asked to leave. You have been warned. Have a good evening. Are there any other public comments from anyone here present before we go to the emailed comment? Please just come up and state your name and address for the record.
Sure. I don't have to hold it down. Hello, Melissa Keenan, 71 Woodstone Road. I'm here because of Dr. Forte's video that you sent to introduce everyone to some new protocols. In that video, you said that the quarantine procedures right now for vaccinated students would mean they didn't have to quarantine and unvaccinated students would. I sent you an email about that. I'm concerned because as it stands now, the CDC and the New Jersey Department of Health has said that we're not sure how well the vaccines prevent the spread for regular COVID or any of the variants, or how long protection lasts. Therefore, technically, every vaccinated person is a potential threat or could be an asymptomatic spreader. If teachers or students need to quarantine or be tested, it should apply regardless of your vaccination status, because there's so little information out there as it stands. I think the school should implement across the board, regardless of your status, so that we're certain that asymptomatic spread is not happening among the vaccinated with all these new variants, just to keep everyone safe. My other question is, I read in the New Jersey Department of Health something about, it's called screening testing, where they're going to implement testing of asymptomatic individuals without any reason to suspect exposure, I guess as a way of monitoring the school environment. When is that being implemented? Is that just for staff? Will that be for students? And can we opt out? Will parental, consent be involved? Will we be notified? Let's see. I wanted to clarify the exemption that I read in the Department of Health outline. It did say that quarantining shouldn't apply if people were properly wearing masks. Is that correct? Like, that wouldn't apply unless there were an unmasked person with a masked person, or vice versa. And then unrelated to that, about the food, the catering company that Lakeview is using this year, is that something that they have used in the past? Is it new this year? And I know my student was very disappointed with the pizza. Can we not get pizzeria pizza anymore? Or it only has to come from the catering company? That's my question. Thank you.
So I'm just going to summarize what Mrs. Grasky had said earlier about the Lakeview, and then I don't know if Dr. Forte wants to take any of the other questions that you mentioned, but what your last statement was correct. Lakeview did not use that program last year. We have, the year before last when lunches were delivered, it was through volunteers. This year, it is a new program that is a requirement, and no, we cannot get outside vendors, like local deliveries for pizza or any other food. It must be through this pre-approved program, like Mrs. Gorowski mentioned during her comments.
Okay, just to clarify, we have to use that program so that you are eligible for the free lunches?
No, ma'am, it's the other way around. We qualify, Lakeview, that building, only that building qualifies for, there's a certain threshold of student percentage that meets the free and reduced lunch. And please interject, anybody from the administration, if I'm...
Lakeview is the only school that exceed the 5% threshold under the national school guidelines that suggest that we have to provide free lunches for those qualifying kids. And because they qualify, we had to open up the program for the entire district at their own cost. This one vendor is the one that is qualifying, and because we do not have a kitchen to provide somebody else to come into district, we are looking into other options for next year. But for the meantime, we have to be with that one vendor, as long as we offer the 5 components that the agriculture department is requested.
Okay, and that would apply across to Valley View as well?
No.
Okay, what's the situation there?
Valley View and Riverview do not exceed the 5% threshold with the free and reduced lunches students.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so just to clarify, we did use, the catering company, by the way, is Morris Hills Regional, and it's their vendor, which is called Pomptonian. They're the ones that we contract with. They prepare the lunches there, they move them over to our school, because we don't have kitchens. We do have warmers in the schools, so that's how it worked. We did use the company last year for children who were qualified for free and reduced lunch. We delivered lunches to their homes, because the board, for about, 6-7 years at least now, has decided to use funds from the district to pay for the lunches for children whose families meet these thresholds. And so we did use it last year for those children. Mrs. Wagner, you want me to go through the other parts of her question? Ms. Keenan's question?
If you feel comfortable doing that now, certainly.
Yep. So it was the vaccine for students and staff and quarantine. So currently, the Department of Health did not change their guidance as of today that says that students must be quarantined if they're vaccinated. So it's all about risk, right? It's all about trying to prevent risk. You can't prevent everything. It's about trying to mitigate risk, right? Right now, we're still not in the orange. I think if we go into the orange, just to clarify, I say this lingo because I'm so used to living it now. The orange level is, there's different levels. It goes green, yellow, orange, red. We never made it to red. We've gotten to orange before, and we've been in green and yellow. Right now, we're in yellow. Yellow means moderate. Orange is high, and red is extremely high. So we are still in yellow. So there will be there is different guidance. If you read that, if you review that document, that one that I sent you, it does say like what happens under yellow, what happens under green, what happens under red, what happens under orange. So right now, the information I'm giving you is where we're at right now. The testing program, if we accept this federal funds, which we're going to, we would have to open it up to students, but it would be opt-in, not opt-out. So we would assume you're not doing it unless you offer to do it. We don't have to have any students do it. We just have to offer it to students if we want to get the federal funds to pay for the testing. And we want to have the federal funds to pay for the testing rather than us pay for it. The next one you said was quarantine with masks. So if you're within 3 to 6 feet, so under 3 feet, you're supposed to, and if you're near somebody who's positive, if you're there for more than 15 minutes, you're supposed to be quarantined with or without a mask. In the 3 to 6 feet range, if you have your mask on, you do not have to be quarantined. That's now under the yellow. There are different guidelines under the orange and the red. I think I hit all of your questions. I wrote them down, so I went through all 4 of them that you had. If I didn't, I'd be happy to,
Yeah, I'm just so confused because when I was reading the stuff from the New Jersey Department of Health, they had an article titled Guidance for Fully Vaccinated People, and they say, quote, "We're still learning how long vaccine protection will last, as well as how much protection is provided against emerging SARS-CoV-2 variants. In addition, the chance that someone who is fully vaccinated could inadvertently spread an infection is still high." So I'm just not sure how it's going to protect everyone if we have different rules for, people with different vaccine statuses.
and there's different rules for schools and non-schools. This rule that I said about the 3 to 6 feet is only for schools.
Right.
So we're since the beginning, I've only used Department of Health guidelines. The CDC changes, but until the Department of Health, that's the health experts that we're supposed to use is our Department of Health.
That's where I'm taking that
Right.
quote from.
So our Department of Health is the one that guides us. Until the Department of Health changes to coincide with some of the CDC things, we're going to continue as they are.
And let me
Unless
just
there's a
interrupt
problem too.
for 1 second, just to say that, Mrs. Keenan, it sounds like your question is specifically about a policy that the Department of Health or a guideline that they are recommending. And I think that we've tried to make it very clear that no one on this administration or on this board is a public health expert. So we must rely on those experts, and as Dr. Forte just stated, those are the ones that we are given to listen to. So if you have questions about their guidelines, then I would suggest you direct their questions about the guidelines to the Department of Health.
I do fully respect what you're saying. However, no matter what they say, regardless of whether it makes common sense or not, you guys can say, well, that's what they told us. I mean, it's working about the masks, it works about the quarantine. It's just every single topic is just, well, that's what they're telling us to do. At what point do we need to say, we can make changes in our own school district because it makes sense? I don't think that's taking anything away from the Department of Health or asking you to disagree with them. It's simply a common sense kind of interpretation of commonly known data right now, which is that there are variants. We do not know the level of protection of vaccinated people or how long they're protected. So in order to protect everyone, we should treat vaccinated and unvaccinated the same when we come up with policies.
What I'm going to
Thank
say.
you.
You're welcome. What I'm going to say to you now, as well as the rest of the public, is that I think that this board and administration has done a good job of entertaining all of the questions and concerns of the community. But we still have a district to oversee, and the administration has a district to run. So as our policy has always been, and we have flexed it in the past, our policy is that open public discussion, the first public comment section, is for agenda items only. Because we have had multiple concerns from community members about policies that have been in place over the past year and a half related to COVID, we have changed that and allowed the open public comment section to take over a large portion of our meeting and go first. And that stops today. Going forward, for the rest of this year, this calendar year, we will be holding our open public comment section to agenda items only, so that we can conduct the business of the district that we are elected to do. And our second public comment section at the end of the meeting will be for any questions or concerns that you have to the district. Are there any other questions or comments from anyone here in the room this evening? Seeing none, Dr. Forte, you had an emailed question?
Yes, I do. It was a specific question regarding this child's program. I will read the name and the address and then a little bit about it. So it comes from Ms. Tony Polilio. Her address is 20 Longview Trail, Denville, Trail West, Denville. Did you get that, Damaris? Okay. And the question revolved around sharing of equipment in school. So the answer back was that we're being cautious about it, but we do want to have the children have as normal of a year as possible. I understand there's masks and there's quarantining, but we're trying to make it as normal as we possibly can given the parameters we're working within. And our principal, Ms. Sardinopoli, reached out to the parent and addressed all of her concerns.
Thank you, Dr. Forte. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, it is 8:32. Oh, and Dr. Forte, can you just check the email to see that none have come in?
I did keep it up and there's
Okay.
nothing in here.
Okay, so then it is 8:32 and public comment section is closed. And now we move forward with old business. Mr. Capello, would you move us through old business, please?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Under old business, if there are no objections, I would like to move items A, B, and C. A are the reports from August 2021 of the Treasurer of School Monies and the Board Secretary. B, education reports. 1, the board approved the attached 2021-2022 Denville Township School District Remote Instruction Plan and NJDOE Remote Instruction Plan attestation form for 2021-2022. And finally, C, the minutes from our work and regular session and executive session meeting of August 9th.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Capello. Thank you, Mr. Cass. Questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Luer,
Yes.
Mr. Kim,
I'll have to abstain from number C1, but yes to the rest.
Mrs. Wagner.
Yes. On to new business, action to be taken under personnel. Mr. Anderson, would you move us through personnel, please?
I'd be happy to. If there are no objections, I'd like to move under personnel items 1 through 18, paying attention to the addendum, which includes the addition under item 1 of DD and EE.
Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr.
Can
Anderson.
you hear me on this?
Thank you, Mr. Luer. We can hear you, but you're low. Questions or comments?
Congratulations to Mr. Todd McKee, Vice Principal of Riverview.
I'd also like to point out and wish the best to Miss Falvino on her retirement.
So congratulations to Mr. McCabe and best wishes to Mrs. Falavino. And if there are no other comments or questions, roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Lure,
Yes.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner.
Yes. We are at instruction and programming. Mr. Kim, would you mind moving us through instruction and programming?
Sure. I motion that we move letter B, instruction and program, as a block, numbers 1 through 4.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Kim. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Questions or comments?
Just for clarification, and Damaris, keep me honest here, number 3, just for clarification for the public, I feel like we do this every time, but these items are, it's in relation to Morris Catholic high school teachers, and noted that it's non-public Title II funds. So just for clarification, those funds are basically flowed through the district because we're the local school district. However, they're not our funds. We're really just facilitating the movement of the funds from the, is it the state? Is that correct?
That is correct. These are federal fundings
Federal.
that the public district needs to, in other words, manage for the non-public school district, and we have to prepare their purchase order and the flow through of the funding.
We are the bank account. Got it.
It always seems a little sketchy to me when we do these.
Aren't there usually fees that banks charge?
Well, actually, I thought it sounded more like money laundering than anything else, but what do I know?
Dr. Forte, can I ask a quick question? And sorry to put you on the spot here because you may not know the answer to it, and not that it would be directly related to whether I'd approve this item, but on item number 4, it's a student intern from a local university. I think it's great that we have these students that come in and give them the opportunity to continue their education. With Executive Order 253, how do these types of interns fall into? Do we have to test them, or are they required to be vaccinated?
They are required to be vaccinated, and the universities have actually changed their forms, and they even say, it's one of the checked off things, that they have to provide their vaccination status and card to us.
Excellent. Thank you so
Because we have
much.
several more, they have to keep the distance, they follow all the other guidelines as well.
And it includes volunteers. If you're a regular volunteer, we went through the regular volunteer process. If you're there in the school, you must be vaccinated. Not even the tested thing, vaccinated.
So that's actually, okay, we could talk about that and go to the cause, actually. Thanks, sorry.
The only thing I'd like to say is that it's great to see the field trip list be full of events, especially all the sports like cross country and soccer. So please keep us posted on the records of these teams.
Yeah, I definitely will. And remember, the 20th, a week from today, 3:30 p.m., we're going to do a little ribbon cutting ceremony, and we invited several people from different walks of life, people that were involved in this process. It's been going on for a long time. I think Don and I first talked about it even before I became superintendent. We started talking about that. So, yeah, it was. So it was like 2014, and before I started on July 1st even.
Okay, I think we're at roll call.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Lure,
Yes.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mrs.
Yes. policy revisions. Mr. Cass, would you please move us through policy revisions?
Sure. Under policy revisions, we have first readings for a number of policies. You have school employee vaccination requirements. We have bylaws, policies, and regulations update, assignment of extra duties, non-renewal of non-tenured teaching staff members, evaluation of teachers, evaluation of teaching staff members, excluding teachers and administrators. We have evaluation of administrators, excluding principals, vice principals, and assistant principals. Evaluations of principals, vice principals, and assistant principals. Non-renewal of non-tenured support staff member. School district travel, and procurement procedures for school nutrition programs. We also have a motion to abolish the Federal Families First Coronavirus COVID-19 Response Act. All first readings.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Cass. Thank you, Mr. Kim. Comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Capello?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Lure?
Abstain.
Mr. Kim?
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner?
Yes. On to finance. Mr. Kim, I'm going to call on you again to bring us through finance, please.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I motion that we move Section D, Finance, as a block. Numbers 1 through 16, along with number 17 on the addendum, paying attention to a bunch of donations, specifically the Lakeview PTA donating $17,843.39. A couple other donations from families for cleaning supplies. And finally, the resolution regarding the submission of the Comprehensive Maintenance Plan and School Facilities Form M1 on number 2.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Kim. Thank you, Mr. Lure. Comments, questions, concerns?
So I did want to point out number 6. This is something we did last year in response to COVID, allowing staff members to have their students attend Denville schools. We reduced that rate, and that's continued. We're looking to continue that again.
Yes, we want to continue it for at least one more year.
Okay. Obviously subject to available space, which I know we had said last time.
Yes, subject to available space, and there's also some other requirements, meaning if there's any cost to the district, the employee would have to pay the full amount of that. So for some reason, if the child needs something more than just being in school, they would assume all costs for that. That's in their contract.
I'm sorry, which resolution number was that?
Number 6.
Thank you.
Okay, so a special thank you to the Lakeview PTA for the substantial donation, as well as the other donations that have come in. And no other comments or questions, so roll call, please.
Mr. Capello?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Lure?
Yes.
Mr. Kim?
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner?
Yes. Okay, and now we are on to operations. Mr. Cass, if you would move us through that, please.
Be glad to. We have a transportation item. I'm asking the board to approve to borrow a 24-passenger school bus from Little Learner Academy to transport students from September 8th, 2021 to September 30th. It was a last-minute correction in that. It's going to be extended to the 30th of September.
Thank you, Mr. Cass. Thank you, Mr. Lure. Questions?
Are we moving the entire, buildings and grounds too?
Yeah, I'm going to move that next. Okay. I don't know if there's any discussion on that, but that's really great that they're as our business administrator mentioned it earlier, there's no charge for this. So that's really nice. Why this is such a great community to be a part of and to live in. Yeah. All right, on building and grounds, asking the board to approve the agreement with Jersey Central Power and Light to perform shutdown and building a riser service on pole JC 61234DN for new 1200A and 120 volt 208 at the Riverview School. And this is part of the HVAC project at a cost of $1,001. If you're wondering what a riser is, that's the power line. I didn't know that. I had to ask. Number 2.2 is to affirm the submission of the amendment application for the security grant for Alyssa's Law and the availability of local funds if the total estimated cost of the proposed work exceed the school district's grant allowance, and if applicable, the school district's responsibility to return a pro rata share of the school security project grant to the New Jersey Department of Education upon termination of a lease prior to June 30th, 2024. And a security grant allocation that follows is to implement 9/11 reforms, $73,500. And the second item is to install security bollards at $12,523.
I'll include that in my second. No, it's sort of my first second. It was just a little premature before.
I just want to say thank you, Mrs. Growski, for constantly being on top of the numerous grant applications and addendums that you submit on behalf of the district. I know that it's laborious, to say the least, and you seem to do it with ease. So thank you very much on behalf of the entire district.
You're welcome, but I also have to give credit to Dr. Forte, specifically for the security grant. He really was the big driver with this grant and communicated with the vendors who will be helping us implement this program.
Yeah, but I was the idea guy. You did all the work, so the credit goes to you. Thank you.
Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Luer,
Yes.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner.
Yes. And now we are at good of the cause, committee reports, correspondence, discussion items, including highlights.
I have a couple items. I am running the Challenger Division at Hub Soccer this year because we couldn't get a replacement for Tom Butler, who did a great job for about 12 years. Nobody stepped up to do it. We started the Special Needs Division about 15 years ago. It was very important to me that we keep it going, so I'm the pro tem director. We started this past Saturday, and it went very well. And I want to mention that we still need mentors. We have about 33 that have signed up. A lot of these kids that signed up are involved with the extracurricular activities at their middle school, high school. A lot of them play sports on Saturday, so we don't expect them to be there every single Saturday in a row. So we never can have enough mentors. And I've observed the challenges from the side over the years, and now, you know, I was right in the middle with everybody there. The mentors are critical to having this program be a success. You need 2 or 3 mentors, or buddies, as we call them, with each special needs. And they are special needs, you know, sometimes very difficult to get a kid out there to participate. So it's important that we have mentors. Usually, like the middle school kids and the high school kids, all need some type of community service for the clubs they're on or their religious activities, etc. So we're keeping attendance of all the buddies that show up, and at the conclusion, if they need a community service letter, they will get it, outlining the days they served and the hours they did and what they did. So if you know of anybody, we're going to do some more advertising for that too. The Denville residents, our group email did generate a lot of activity from the cyber community, and then, you know, family and neighbors told other people. So we're off to a good start, but I'd like to get that count up to 40, maybe 45 kids, which would really give us a nice cushion there for the season.
Dawn, before you go on, can I ask you, is there a certain level of skill that the mentors, that you're looking for?
No, some of these kids play soccer. A lot of them don't. They're just really, really good kids. I'm impressed with the maturity of some of these kids. You know, you worry about the future of the country, and some of these kids just phenomenal. And a lot of them are repeaters. I mean, they've done it before. So it's just a matter of helping the kid along. Whatever we're doing. Pretty simple skill stuff, nothing too complicated, and they're having a ball. So really, no special skills. I guess you have to have some patience, good listening skills and everything to make sure that the special needs player is comfortable, and that it went well. And again, I'm just can't say it enough. I'm overly impressed with these kids that showed up. Our students, they're caring, and a lot of them know the kids from school because of our inclusive policy. So they buddy up with somebody they're in school with. They know each other, which really puts everybody in a comfort zone to start with. So no special skills needed. They don't have to play a sport. Yeah, I had just a question. I know last week was kind of like a choppy week with school attendance, even at the high school. But I was wondering what. Were there any 9/11 activities at the school? I know we've done that in the past. Yeah, just a few words, a quick update on what happened at the 3 schools.
Sure. In your report, I put a link to a video that was made that you can take a look at when you get a chance. The schools, all 3 schools did something. It was age appropriate. There was no, no specific things about what exactly happened, especially in the younger grades. It mostly revolved around the raising of the flag and the half-mast and the ceremony that was behind that. There were each classroom in the elementary schools, the teachers spoke about it, showed the video, but kept it age appropriate, obviously. In the middle school, at 8:36, I think that's the time, 8:36 a.m., there was a moment of silence. There was a moment of silence in the elementary schools as well. In the middle school, there was a moment of silence, the flag ceremony piece, and also discussion in each classroom about what was going on in 9/11.
That's great. I keep reminding myself here. I mean, it's 20 years ago when that happened, so a lot of these kids weren't born. And also, I was wondering, got to be challenging and difficult at the elementary schools for these kids to learn about it, how you approach that, so there's some understanding without getting overly graphic.
Yeah, definitely. It's a balance. But none of our students were around 20 years ago. Just to point that out.
The other thing I mentioned is I saw the Spanish Heritage Months, which is really good. There's only so many months in the school year, so I'm just wondering how that's approached with all the, America is truly a melting pot. My grandparents immigrated from Spain and from Italy, so, we have people from all different countries here starting a new life. So I'm just wondering how you approach all the different cultures that have made the country great in so many different ways, the contributions with science, inventions, and let's not forget food.
Well, it's exactly how you're saying. So we try to emphasize that America's every culture, right? That's what's unique about America, is that we're every culture. And so we just try to highlight American citizens that have different cultural backgrounds that have contributed to America as it is. So how we do it is, because it really can't, it's not like we can have the whole curriculum be that, because then that's all we would do. So it really is kind of on the outskirts. So like when you walk in and there's CCTV, we do did you know? And then whatever particular month it is, this next month, a lot of the highlights will all be Hispanic heritage Americans. And then it would be just facts, like did you know there are 22 Spanish-speaking countries, including United States and so forth. And then we do that for a variety of months. A lot of them overlap. So interestingly, the way that Columbus Day falls is within that month, and intentionally it's within that month because because he's from Portugal, and those from Spain, they see it as a real highlight that's when the Spanish language came over to other continents. So, I mean, it kind of falls all in those months. Because then, we'll have, we have Native American heritage in November, and we have a lot of them throughout. But we try to just every day highlight different people. And if it's a specific month, commemorative month, we try to highlight American citizens more during that month.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hey, Don, I'll jump on a quick comment. You asked about September 11th and some of the stuff that's done in the school. I had the opportunity to drive my daughter along with 3 other fine middle school students, several-hour drive down and back to a soccer game, and hear their conversations. They actually talked quite a bit. It was on September 11th when we drove down, and they talked quite a bit about what they talked about in the school, and I was really impressed with talking everything from patriotism to kind of the story of the red bandana, and so many different stories they talked about, and the depth and knowledge they knew about an event that happened prior to them ever being born was really amazing, and a lot of it came from what they had just talked about that week in school. So it was great to kind of hear just on the periphery.
That's great. And since we had the original 9/11 Hub Soccer wears on the left shirt sleeve in the fall, the We Remember logo.
Laura, can I just jump in with a couple of good to the cause comments? Number one, just as we get started with the school year, I wanted to point out something that I actually heard twice this weekend, and give kudos to our district. Everybody knows nationwide there's a shortage of bus drivers, and 2 different districts I heard were so strapped for bus drivers that kids were sitting on the floor this week on buses. So I know we're always precariously close, including some issues with a bus this week with the 24-passenger bus that we had some help with, but we have done a great job with a very, very, very difficult situation. So kudos to Mrs. Gorowski and the entire transportation team for continuing to find ways to ensure that our students have transportation to and from school. Separate subject, just so everybody is aware, we've talked quite a bit, although I feel like not very recently, about multiple high-density housing developments that are planned, or potential, I should say, in the town. One of them have broken ground. It is the largest of the ones that we've talked about. It is the Ram Associates or Toll Brothers. It's got both different names to make it really confusing. The address is 360 Franklin Avenue, which is basically as close to Rockaway as you could possibly get. It's the last location in Rockaway. The property is kind of a flag lot. You would never know there was 41 acres back there, but there's an entrance off of Franklin Ave between Route 46 and Morris Knowles driveway going up. They cleared out all the trees, so it looks like absolute crap. But there's 116 townhomes going in there. They are 92 market rate 3-bedroom townhomes with an additional den in those, and then 24 affordable. I don't remember the breakdown, but they're 1 and 2 and 3 bedroom. There's in accordance with the kind of formula from the state. So, so I just want to give everybody a little bit of visibility that has at least started. Have no idea anything on timeline or what that would look like, but it's probably the first shoe to drop for several others that we expect or know about kind of coming down the pipe here. So
I know a little more about it too. So it's right now it's only groundwork and infrastructure, but they do expect construction to begin in the spring, and they do expect the first units to be occupied by the fall. There's another one now too that started a little bit. There was a weird purplish house near Alexis Diner. if you've driven by there lately, that's been demolished, and there's some groundwork and there's some remediation, like environmental remediation going on, and that is going to be, I'm going to estimate it, something, it was either 40 to 60 condos back there, townhouses, something like that. The permits for the work haven't been pulled yet, but there is some groundwork being done. So there's two things going on a little bit. The one that you spoke of, Mike, to Toll Brothers, is definitely moving quicker. The other one will happen too, it looks like. And that wasn't even one of the ones that we really even talked about. That's another one.
Yeah, that was one that the town told us was probably not going to happen near term. They were pretty adamant. That one and the second one on Estlin going up the hill, which also has progress happening on it, from my understanding.
That one has progress, and I actually had to go to a meeting with the New Jersey Department of Transportation about what they're going to do with that road over there. They want to close off and eliminate the one train track, the crossing. That's what they're talking about doing. So, yeah, there's some stuff. There's some activity going on in some of the projects.
Well, I think this leads perfectly into the demographic study, the study that we were slated for this fall, I believe, right? And I wonder how much of it has to do with like the article that Dino forwarded to the board last week, along with the New York Times article that mentioned Denville. So it's almost as if all the developers, knowing the popularity of this town, are saying, well, let's break ground. Why are we waiting? So first I want to thank Mr. Lohr for taking the minutes in the finance meeting. I wasn't present, and I believe it was discussed, and hopefully we can notify the demographer to see if they can get started once they have the final statistics on the enrollment for this year.
Yeah, we will reach out to Dr. Grip and get started on that a little later in the fall, and just have it ready for our long-range facilities plan that will be done in late winter, early spring.
So are you saying you want to wait till wait till after the winter to do the demographic?
No,
study?
we
Okay.
want to do the demographer in the fall, so probably
okay.
somewhere around November. By the time we get our October 15th count, that's the number you're talking about. Then from that point, he should move on it. But we're maybe delay a month just to see if anything goes on with some of these permits and any other projects. That was one of the reasons why we wanted to put it off until the fall instead of doing it over the summer, just to see what's going on with some of the building in town.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, and there's quite a bit of building outside of Denville you're seeing too. I mean, you've seen Morris Township, where the old Menon building is. That is unbelievable, the amount that's going in there. My understanding is Glenmont Commons in Denville is going to be close. He's finishing a project on the Parsippany side. And my understanding is that that's next on his list, at least that developer. And there's apparently progress on the Route 10 going eastbound right past the Stop and Shop where like the Starbucks is and all that. Those office buildings, particularly ones that have been empty for probably 10 years now, apparently are part of a huge project that's bigger than the Menon project. So there's a lot of building going on. So
And that's gonna be residential all along there.
that is going to be very similar to the Menon project. So my understanding is residential. There's also like commercial, not commercial, but like retail, restaurants, stuff like that. Similar. So the second phase of that Menon project, if you notice, it's set really far back off of Hanover Avenue. My understanding is all the housing is in the back, and on the front they're going to put all retail and restaurants and whatnot.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I guess a real quick follow-up is, how does the board feel about the cafeterias that Dr. Forte mentioned? Is that something that, like, if we are going to go to referendum and we do find that we're going to have to build more classrooms, do we want to try to include cafeterias in that as well? I was just curious to know.
I think that if we're going to if we feel we have to go to referendum at some point in the future, and we're going to pay an architect to do significant amount of plans, I think it's worthwhile getting a look in some way, shape, or form as to what it would cost. I would predict, without seeing numbers from an architect, that it's going to be a huge amount of cost. You're talking, double-digit millions of dollars is my guess, over 10 million, but that's shooting from the hip, just knowing what I know about school construction and the fact that it costs 10 times as much as anything else. But I think there's no reason to not look at it if we're thinking we have to go to referendum, have an architect draw up a plan, or at least give us an estimate of what it could be, then I don't see any reason to stop. That's my opinion.
I generally agree with that. I also agree completely with Mike. I think the costs will be astronomical, and I think more than likely it's not going to be viable at all three schools. I'd be interested in looking at alternatives. We may need to think outside the box. Maybe we look at a central kitchen that can supply the schools in the district, do something like that. I don't know, but I mean, I think we're going to have to think outside the box just because of our structure and our space and our buildings. So, but I'm very interested in it.
That's not uncommon either, to have some districts that there's not a cafeteria, full kitchen in each building. They move them around. That's not uncommon at all.
There's a property on Opanaki Road we can purchase and put a kitchen there.
Yeah, I wonder how much they want for it now, though.
So by the way, I will say that school lunches are like the third rail, kind of like buses and start times of schools. So just be prepared if that's a discussion point, because I carefully went back and actually looked through one of the Facebook groups on lunches, and there were 600 comments about lunches in the last few years. So it's no matter what you do for a lunch, it's never a popular or good decision. Mrs. Wagner's been involved with some of those in the past. It's no fun. And I don't think that even the districts that have had cafeterias for many, many years are happy. Their students and the parents aren't happy with the outcome, but no reason to not potentially look at it.
Are there other school districts in the area that have buildings that are that have to provide lunches under the 5% at the 5% limit? Do we know?
I just know of one district that provide lunch, but they do not have the 5%, but they do provide lunch to some of their financially, economically disadvantaged students, but they do not have a cafeteria.
If we ever end up in a situation where we have to do a kitchen, it might be worth reaching out to other districts and seeing if anyone else would be interested in doing like a shared services thing like we do when we're busing with some of the busing to other districts.
And I think Pomptonian does a lot of the small districts, because most of the small districts, the K-8s, don't have kitchens. So I think they all do the bring it in model. I mean, there's school lunches. The option, you could bring your own.
If you don't use the mic, then the people at home can't hear you.
Okay. So what we're currently doing with the Morris Hills Regional District, that's working out okay? I mean, the solutions we have in place?
The shared service is working out okay. I heard some complaints about the actual food itself.
Don, this is like this is the equivalent of if you went to like Tuscan Table for dinner every night, and then I told you had to go to 7-Eleven and grab a slice of pizza. I'm serious. Like you can't have the same expectation for the food. I mean, it's just, I'm sorry. We at one point had sushi being delivered to Lakeview, and there's.
And I think you mentioned before about Denville being such a good community, and for many, many reasons, and one of them is our small business community. And at all the schools, they have partnered with the PTAs to distribute lunches from local businesses, and it's a great fundraiser for the PTAs, and it's been great business for the small businesses. But because of these regulations, we can't do that at Lakeview anymore. So it's unfortunate, but I think Mike's analogy is pretty spot on, that you cannot expect the same quality level that from Tuscan Table as you can from 7-Eleven. So
No offense to
Understood. Well, I've never heard, my years in high school and college, I never heard anybody rave about the food, okay, that was served in the cafeteria. I mean, it was okay, it was nutritional and balanced and all of that, but it wasn't great food. And same thing when I was in the Army, especially in basic training, when you ate your breakfast, lunch, and dinner out of a tin tray. So they probably don't have that anymore. Although,
MREs now.
up at Fort Wainwright, at the cafeteria at the hospital I was at for a while, the woman that ran that was, they had good chefs there, so it was excellent food, so. But, you know,
They may not have had the 5 pillars for the USDA back then, Don.
right. Yeah, with the, and we just going back to when we tried to tee up, you know, a new school, when I first joined the board here, we had that à la carte from, menu from the architect there with, because when you know, we started out with what do you want? So, you know, we were building a Rolls Royce or a Cadillac school there, the cost of a swimming pool, a gymatorium, you know, you can use for performing arts as well as sports and everything there. So after we got that, and it was around 60 million, if I recall, we got out the red pencil and started crossing things off the list till it got down to 30 million. So that's a great idea to see what those things cost. But as you know, you have a cafeteria in a school now. It's not just the cost of building the cafeteria. You're going to have the health inspections. You're going to have maintenance of equipment we don't maintain right now, and a staff to serve the food. Are they union staff? They're going to pay pension and all the other benefits and everything. There's a tremendous ongoing cost to us, so we're going to have to see what that is involved with too before, you know, and there's no way you're going to know if the food's any better than you're getting from the Morris Hills Regional District.
And it's not a one-time cost, it will be a long-term cost with personnel and equipment and bringing the program forward. So it will be a recurring expense on a yearly basis.
Yeah, when we get to that point, we should, well, there's probably information out there right now, what the average, how many employees you need and, you know, the average cost employee is and all of that, but that's it's a real big ticket item. It's going to drive up the costs. And, you know, I doubt the way we're so fiscally prudent today and trying to stay under that 2% cap, and this year we saved some money there. I think it'd be very challenging. You know, what would you have to give up if you had to maintain a cafeteria and stay under that 2% cap?
Let's also not forget, too, that if that number at Lakeview drops to 4%, we don't have to do this. So putting an investment in with the possibility that we may not have to do this, and also I know there was a lot of discussion at Lakeview on this board that we would prefer not to take it over because the PTA is one of their largest fundraisers. So every you know, right now Valley View and Riverview still have that fundraising option. It also supports local businesses, like Mrs. Wagner said. These are all being pulled from local restaurants or vendors, and I think there's usually a focus on trying to keep it local. So you know, am I willing to look at it? Yes. Man, it would take a lot of steps from here to there. And who knows, right? We can jump to 7% at all 3 schools next year, and we're going to have to, you know, expand the program. So, you know, good conversation. And I think it's certainly something we should always think about our options. And just like we looked at the options for Riverview Annex, we should look at our options for something moving like this in the future.
And I guess as a follow-up question, with the affordable housing that's coming in, do we know how that's going to affect our percentages with all the schools? So maybe, is that something that maybe the demographer can help us with too?
I think it's a tough one too, right? Because, you know, you've got this particular one, right? 92 market rate and 24 affordable. However, those market rate do not mean that those people do not qualify for free and reduced lunch. So whole lot of parameters. Good question, great question. And maybe the demographer can help us understand that a little bit more. Maybe just looking at kind of the data from demographics from the town, that may give a better insight. Hard to probably say what's going to come in with it, but with the new population. But yeah, good point.
I wouldn't be surprised if the low income houses, the parents may not qualify for the free lunches as well, because the threshold for the free lunch is pretty low. And it's a different threshold for the housing.
If they're paying less for their housing. So, yeah, if you guys don't mind, I'd like to talk about curriculum for a moment. I know, you know, it seems like all we talk about are masks and buses and as lunches, but I'd like to talk about curriculum for 1 second, yeah, if that's okay. Dr. Cullis sent the curriculum committee members today a sample of something from the Linkit dashboard called it's Fingertip Report, I believe. So this is a report that teachers get at the beginning of the year. It shows each student where they ended up at the end of the year. It gives them a starting point in terms of for instruction. It shows their areas of strength, their areas of weakness. It's very interesting. Dr. Cullis has said to the curriculum committee, and I believe to the full board a few times, Linkit is a really powerful tool. It's a great piece of software. It provides a lot of information. I'd like to, with agreement, maybe take the curriculum committee and kind of go a little bit of a deeper dive and really try to understand, what this information, what it can do, how the teachers are going to use it, what her expectations are for what can come out of it in terms of student achievement. I just think there's a lot here to kind of dig into. So I'd like to spend a little time with Dr. Cullis at some point, either, again, as part of the committee, individually, just learning a little more about it, which is my comment. So that's all.
We'll be interested to hear what you have to say. Sounds excellent. Thank you.
And right now, the teachers with their fingertips are meeting with their grade levels or departments, and there's like a set of, Linkit provided some questions, like some discussion questions, and some things to compare. So it really was some activities for the teachers to go through. So the principals are doing those with each grade level or department, but in small groups. So they're taking their own student data and they're kind of doing this work and going through the questions. It's really great. I mean, it's the best professional development that there is. I mean, that kind of stuff.
I mean, and this really, you've been talking about this for years that I've been on the board, this, the individualization of instruction, right? I mean, this just seems like the tool that's really starting to drive some of that in terms of what, teachers really being able to drill down to very specifically where a student is excelling, where a student is having challenges, and start to address that. So.
And I think thank you, Mr. Capello, for bringing it up. I think it's also good for parents who are concerned that, through the past year and a half of COVID and everything that they've been, the schools as well as the community has been going through, that they're concerned that their students are falling behind, and you constantly hear this expression, our kids are behind, and I forget what the expression is now, like they're not really behind, they're not competing with someone. But whatever the expression is, it's out there, and it's good to know that there's the district is on top of monitoring that, and you've got this tool now to utilize it for that individual basis. So thank you for bringing it to the board's attention.
How would we like these two things for BOE highlights? Donations from the public of over $20,000 worth of equipment and supplies. And thank you to Little Learner in Denville for loaning a minibus while one of the district's minibus is being repaired.
The only thing I would add is
And the award from
the
Mrs.
award to Lydia. I think I would add.
And the virtual plan approval. The plan.
One last plug for the Denville Education Foundation golf outing. It's still on for October 18th, Rockaway River Country Club. They will have a shotgun start for the golf at noon. You can arrive at 10:30. And then dinner, awards, live auction, and reception at 5:30 p.m., sorry. And if anybody's looking for information, they can go to denvilleedu.org, which is their new website. So denvilleedu.org, you can go on there and get information as well as register for either the golf outing or the dinner.
And just to add to what Mr. Anderson said, it is their only fundraiser for the year. They are the program that provides grants throughout the district for all the many of the extra activities that the teachers want to do. And you do not have to play golf. You can just go to the dinner. I'm not a golf player, but the dinner is always lovely, and you can win some nice prizes. So if you are free, please register.
The form does mention just dinner as well, too. Mhm.
Yeah, if you go on to the website and click register under the event, go to event and then register. You can register for one golfer up to 4 golfers, one person for dinner up to 4 people. You can also send an email to the email address at the bottom, which is info@foundationofdenville.org, and you can get any information. They'll get you registered. So.
Yes, great, thank you. We'll push this out again.
Okay, so we do have a need for an executive session, a short executive session.
Mrs. Wagner, can we
Oh,
open for
sorry.
public?
Yes, thank you. It is 9:21, and we are open for public comment section. Either send in your emailed questions, seeing no one in the room right now, and it will be addressed or read aloud. Please add your address. Seeing no emails that have come in during the meeting, we are going to, and no one in the room from the public, we are going to close the public comments section at 9:21. And we do have the need for a short executive session.
I would like to move to convene an executive session in accordance with Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act. The purpose of this closed session will be to discuss
Personnel and legal.
personnel and legal issues. Minutes of this session will be made available to the public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, I just want to say before we vote, we will be coming out of the executive session to close the meeting, but there will not be any voting remaining tonight. Vote on the executive session. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We are adjourned at 9:22.